Hello, digital photography class. This is my first tutorial on virtual learning. This is Julius. He's going to be the model today. And I'm going to show you guys how to make a David Hockney collage. It's going to be really fun. So all you'll need is a camera, preferably a manual camera, but you're welcome to use your phones if needed for the camera on your phones. And you'll need a subject and you'll need some patience, and you're going to be going up close and taking a bunch of pictures. So I created this fun little backdrop with some balloons we had. Hopefully you have found that David Hockney takes multiple photos of different perspectives and then stitches them together to create a surreal perspective where some images are going off this way, some images are going off this way. And I'll give you a bunch of examples, but we are going to get started. So I have my 50mm lens. We are going to be getting very close up. So you're going to want a lens or a camera that you can get close up to. I set my ISO to about 640 because I'm inside. And I want my shutter speed to be at least 125 because I'm photographing someone that's moving. So you're gonna sit in the chair. And for the David Hockney, you are going to anchor yourself in a place. So let's say I'm gonna sit right here and I'm going to be moving my camera but staying still. So if I need to take pictures of the top of his head, my camera is going to be moving, but I'm gonna stay in the same spot. So here goes. All right, so this is even too far from my subject. I want to get closer, and I'm going to pretty much photograph like it's a grid. So I'm taking my first shot to make sure that my lighting is good and my settings are good, and then I'm going to get started, and I'm going to photograph a grid. So I'm going to photograph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to try to do 9. Come sit. I'm going to try to do 9 photographs in one area, and then I'm going to stitch them together in Photoshop. So I'm going to do the top of his head and just slightly moving my camera, but I want different. So if I'm photographing the middle and I have half of his eye in this shot, I want to get the other half of his face in the next shot. And you can take a couple photos in one position just in case that someone moves. And then I'm going to go down now, lower. And sometimes my focus will be on his feet, and sometimes my focus will be on him. So when we stitch them together, we're going to see that the focus shifts and changes, and it makes the photograph more interesting. So usual rules for photography kind of fly out the door with David Hockney, but you will see that you'll get a great composition. All right, so Jules, sit back. We're gonna do a couple more. So now I'm getting his toes hanging off the chair, and maybe I want his toes in focus, maybe I want the chair in focus. If you take a couple shots, you can see. And now I'm gonna show you close up. So I have the top corner, then I have near his head, then I have more of his face in this frame, and then I have the other side of his face in the frame.
Mom, you forgot.
And then I have down lower.
You forgot my tummy and my back.
Yeah, and now I'm gonna stitch these together in Photoshop, and we'll go over that as well. All right, I'm gonna try it again using a different subject that doesn't move as much, and I'm gonna get even closer. Make sure you're not missing any holes in your photograph. Go across each area. Now we're gonna edit on Lightroom. I'm mostly focusing on the exposure, making sure my exposure is good. I like to use contrast. I desaturate a little bit. Clarity always helps bring out all the tones. And then there's a shortcut to copy and pasting on all images. So if you've taken all of your images in the same light. If you don't want to go back and do each one individually, all you need to do is, instead of just doing Control V, you're going to highlight the ones you want and do Control Shift V, and that will paste on everything. Then you're going to save these files. I usually make a cold folder. So I'll make this my cold folder. And then I'm going to be opening up, once they're done saving, I'm going to be opening up my images in Photoshop. You're going to want to start with just a blank background. So if you want to go to File and then Create New, I made mine 16 by 16 because sometimes with hockneys, you don't know which direction your photos are going to go in. Maybe you're shooting vertically, but they kind of get more deformed as you add more photos. So just like we did print sheets for our documentary project, we are going to be putting all of these images onto pretty much a print sheet and then resizing them, doing Control T for free transform tool. What I like to do is I like to open them up, drag them on, and resize them just a little bit so that I have more room to work. What's great with this is you start to figure out the puzzle that you're creating. So you pick which layers you want on the top layer, which layers you want on the bottom layer. But what I like to do first is just get all my images onto one sheet of paper, essentially. Just resizing them a little bit so that I can kind of fit them in the right spot. So what I'm doing now is I'm just making my canvas larger. So if you remember, the canvas size does not affect the pixels of your picture. It just makes the white space in the background bigger. So if you need a little bit more room, you just go to Image, Canvas Size, and then you can make the canvas size whatever size you want. So if you're getting to the edge of your paper and you want some extra room, that's definitely helpful. So now I'm just putting all the images in, fitting them in the sort of the area that they would fit in. And now you can see that Julius was right and his belly is missing. I guess I'll have to put him in the same outfit and take that picture again. But so that's a good note for you guys to make sure you photograph all of the areas of your subject. That way you don't have to re-photograph. So make sure you are always saving the layered ones when you're finished. But also save it as a JPEG because you'll be submitting the JPEG on Google Classroom. So I'm going to now make the second portrait that I took with Prince, my dog. And so I'm doing the same thing. I had the pictures edited in Lightroom. I took a lot more of Prince because he was more patient maybe and he just laid there. So I had a lot of options to choose from. So I would start with a couple. I would lay them down onto the canvas and then I will see where my missing holes are and filling those in with the right photos that I have in my folder. And some images I was too close and the rest of them were too far, so I just didn't like how it came out. So I didn't use all of the images I took. But it's nice to have the options. And notice here how I'm extending the legs of the chair, just kind of playing around with how far I can make something stretch. And then I want to show you guys how you can go a step further if you want to start blending your layers together. You're going to want to make sure you're on the correct layer. And you're going to basically use the eraser tool. You can use a selection tool to select an area to delete, but I just like to do the eraser tool and make sure that the opacity is a little bit lower and make sure that the hardness of the eraser tool isn't at 100%.
And then whatever layer you're erasing on, just make sure that's the layer that's selected. All the hockneys are going to come out very different. Even as you can see, the two that I photographed are very different. So try not to get frustrated with it and just have fun with it. It's more of an experimental kind of photography. So I hope you enjoy this lesson, and I cannot wait to see what you guys create.